Welcome to Take It from the Ironwoman. My name is Susanne Müller, your host and the Ironwoman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Ironwoman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. Take it from the Ironwoman. We only have special guests. Today, we go to New York to Diana Nash. Actually, she was the career counselor at Marymount, Manhattan, when I signed up to go back to college many moons ago. I remember I wanted to go for speech pathology. Then Diana Nash said, well, we don't have that program as a part-time program. At the spur of the moment, I said, okay, then I go for psychology. Here we are a few years later. We're still in contact. So to me, this fills my heart that Marymount was such a special place. We have a fantastic group with Gloria, Teresa, Elena. We stay in contact. We help each other out. It was just a magical place. That's why I'm really, really excited to have you. When you read her biography, it says, Diana Nash has been a grief therapist for 20 plus years and adjunct professor of psychology at Marymount College, holds a master's in counseling psychology from New York University. Diana is a licensed mental health counselor. And I could go on, but introduce yourself. Who's Diana? Who's going to join us today? Who are you? That's the question.
Who am I? Who am I at the moment? Yes. Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm Diana Nash. I'm proud to say that I do teach death and bereavement and psychology courses at Marymount Manhattan College. Also, I have a private practice where I have clients who are grieving or are depressed, have anxiety, loss issues, or just some of the tough challenges of life. I do that as well.
How did you get into this? The grief therapist is such a heavy work that you're doing.
That's a really interesting question. Most therapists will tell you that they were drawn to their specialization or the population that they work with for personal reasons. I would have to say I am one of those. What happened for me is that I was in the master's program at NYU, and we had to choose a specialization. And at that time, 2 members of my family had already passed. And then a third passed when I had to, that very week, choose a specialization. And I thought, boy, I need some bereavement counseling skills and understanding for myself so I can personally navigate this grief journey. I started taking the courses and they changed my life and supported me during my grieving. It became my passion.
I took your class, Death and Dying. And this was one of the first classes you were teaching. And it was opening our eyes at what other cultures are doing or how we can help each other and support each other. Everybody should take a class like that.
Thank you for saying that. Yes, many people will say, oh, it's such a dark and heavy and intense subject matter, but it is part of life, as they say. Death studies are about life with the death issues left in. In our culture, we don't speak about death. We don't talk about it. We're a death-denying culture in the States. We only really talk about it when we're coming from a funeral or a memorial service. And then we feel that we can talk about it. But then it goes under covers again. People are hesitant to speak about how deeply they are grieving and how painful it is. It's a psychic pain. It's not a pain you see on your body. If somebody breaks an arm, you see they have a cast. You see it. You know it. It's an internal and invisible pain and experience, which makes it even more challenging because others don't know that you're grieving. And sometimes even if they know, they don't know how to react. They're like, oh, I hope I don't say the wrong thing. And so it gets tricky and they hesitate. Some people fear that if they get too close to a person who's grieving, it might be catching. Maybe they would die, or maybe someone they love would die. Yes, people die. We all do. These are valid concerns. But as you learn about it, and thanatology it's called, which is death studies, as you learn about these things, you realize that there's much to learn that isn't quite so scary, but has to do with the very practical ways and emotional ways of addressing your grief.
I'm always amazed when you look at cultures like, I can only say Italy or Greece or the southern part of Europe, women are wearing black for a whole year.
Yes.
This is kind of like nice to say, I'm grieving. Maybe this is kind of their uniform or their shield.
Yes. Yes, I agree with you, because this is a way of telling others that you are grieving, and hopefully they will treat you better and with tenderness and consideration and compassion. There are other cultures that do that type of thing too. They wear certain garments. The Jewish tradition is to rend your clothing, to tear a piece of cloth near your collar. And if there's that torn piece and people see it, they know you're grieving. Back in time, in our country, in the States here, people would wear a black armband. They would know. Yeah. Women here would dress in black. And it would be for about a year. Queen Victoria, way back in England, started that when her husband passed. She wore black, but she wore black for the rest of her life. She grieved so for him. It evolved to wearing black for at least a year, which then evolved to the custom in our country of wearing black at a funeral or a memorial service. It's modernized now and people wear different colors and such. But back in time, they were all black, men and women. Yeah, children as well.
What can the listeners learn? Everybody's grieving different, right? So some people get angry, denial. How can we talk? What is the right way to talk? Maybe that's a better question, which actually is not the right question.
It is the right question, because the question really is what to say, what to do. That is the question. Often people will say, I don't know what to say to him, or I don't know what to say to her. Few of us do know what to say. The best thing to say often is just to say, I don't really know what to say to you. I'm here beside you. I'm with you. I care for you. I love you. And I'm here for you. But I don't have words for what to say. But know that I'm here. And that's very powerful. Our presence is extremely powerful. Just being with another person beside them, supporting them, loving them. That's one of the most powerful things in the world, I believe.
Maybe saying it. Sometimes we have it in our head and we're like, I wish I could say I'm here for you. I think we need to also say it. What I sometimes as a business coach say to people, rehearse it. Yes. Could also be for grieving. I'm here for you.
Being authentic, very important, yes. It also gives a strong message to children. It's very important for us to model for our children in our society that we grieve for the person who's lost, that every person is important. And when they pass, we will miss them. This translates into, in little minds, I'm important. They think I'm important. And it's a very powerful message. Whereas if it's not talked about or not realized or manifested in those ways, little ones can feel like maybe they're not so important. They need that reassurance. We're coming up on the holidays now. So this is what's called, if I may digress a bit here,
sure.
It's called a trigger event or time, because it could be the very first Thanksgiving or Christmas or Hanukkah, whatever one celebrates in their family without their loved one. How do you handle that? Do you talk about it? Do you not bring up the person's name? Some cultures, you're not supposed to speak about their name of the deceased. That's bad. Mostly in the States, it's okay to do it, but it takes courage. Often what I suggest and has worked well for clients is that they consider things like at a Thanksgiving dinner to actually set a place setting for the person, to have a toast, have a toast to them. Yeah. This is to our Aunt Mary, for example. We love you, we miss you, and we feel your spirit with us, or we wish you were here, whatever your words are. To include, or in reality, in real words, in real actions. Again, all the people there then pick up on that. I'm important too. I would be missed. Because we all want to be remembered. In Mexico, in the rural areas, they still believe, and maybe some of the cosmopolitan areas too, that a person is not truly dead until the last person who knew them also dies. We live in the memories of those that we were friends with, that were family, that we loved, that we knew. We live in those memories.
I like the way of having a plate, a setting for them, invite their spirits, and then we can talk about stories with them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We just lost our favorite uncle, and my sister collected stories, and it seemed all the nieces and nephews, we basically had the same stories. We also have to celebrate life.
It's a very important thing to do. In the country, we're moving, in the States, we're moving away from organized religion. And organized religion has things laid out for us. Here's what you do certain days. Here's the services you have, the ways you handle all of this. If we are not participating in organized religion as much, which statistics show we're not in our country, then what do? Oh, well, I guess I have to figure it out on my own. So if you can come up with your own rituals or ways of doing things like the setting at the Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas or Hanukkah, people come up with a lot of interesting things. Some people light a candle for the person who's deceased, have a toast of wine or whatever they're drinking in their name, go around at the table and mention a memory that they have of their loved one, sharing that.
When you are a grief therapist or counselor, how long do you work with, let's say, a person when they come and see you?
Often I'm asked that question, how long will it take? And the other question is, am I doing it right, in quotes? There's no right or wrong way. It's just your way. But as far as the timing of it, it can typically, and it depends on how the person passed. If they died suddenly in an accident or a heart attack, but they were young and healthy, that's a different loss. Mm-hmm. A person who's 95 and had a degenerative disease. That's more age appropriate, in quotes. Mm-hmm. It's in the natural order of things for people to die as they're older in number of years. That's the natural order. If someone dies young and tragically, it's much harder typically to process that. Mm-hmm. Processing meaning talking with a therapist, or not always a therapist, sometimes clergy, friends, family members, talking about the person, talking about how they're feeling, being open about how they feel, crying when they think about them, and that's okay. That type of thing, that's all processing. If a person has a structure within their friends and family and community, that can be the structure to help them grieve and process. If it were a very young person, a tragic passing, and I would have to include suicide as well, because that's horrific. It's like, why did this happen? Why didn't I know? What could I have done? That type of thing. It can take longer. Typically, though, it would be 6 months, maybe weekly. And what I do is taper off. So as a person progresses and begins to process their feelings, I can see the progress and they can feel it and they know it. We can go from once a week to every other week, and then every third week, and then once a month, and kind of what they call titrate off.
You mentioned suicide, but also depression and loneliness. I read an article of Corn Ferry, and they said that actually loneliness in an office can be as hard as smoking 15 cigarettes per day.
Yes, I have read that statistics. Yes, and loneliness is a major problem in the United States and in the UK, they have now named a minister of loneliness, a woman, and it's her job to create more community centers and programs for people to involve them and to socialize with each other and to build that structure again, which is missing some because of the lack of the organized religion and participation in that. So she's doing that. We have it in our country. The chief surgeon of our country has declared loneliness as a pandemic. That can be any age group. I have worked with college-age students who feel lonely. They've got 100 students in the dorm, but they feel lonely.
Oh, yeah.
Through family members who feel lonely, to the elderly who feel lonely if they're living alone or they're living in an institution, a nursing home, whatever. They can feel lonely. Their whole life has changed. It's a major area of concern in our country. Many of the clients that I work with, that's one of the things that they name: loneliness. I feel lonely. I don't feel just alone. I feel lonely.
Especially in New York City, it can be very lonely among the 8-9 million people.
Exactly. So the work then becomes to find ways to reach out in the city, for example, or wherever a person lives, to connect with other people. The libraries do a lot of work like that in the city. They have a lot of activities, and they have many cultural events. They will have speakers from different countries speak about their books, and you can go and all you have to have that was your library card. You don't have to pay a lot of money. You can go meet others who are interested in the same things you're interested in. And working with adults, often it can involve, well, what did you used to do when you were a kid? Oh, well, I used to play soccer. Well, there are soccer games in the city. There are pickup soccer games in the city. If I keep a list of places to go and things to do, and I keep adding to it, and you can do that in any community area, or if there isn't one, you can start one. Do that outreach around interests that you have. The most unusual one I had was a woman who met her future husband. He was a carpenter. She was a scientist. They are, and she's a scientist. They met at the library at a lecture on the geometry of the liver. And I was like, why go to that? She said, I don't know. It just sounded kind of cool, kind of interesting. He went because he thought that it would have something to do with the wood things that he made and he created and stuff. She went as a scientist because she thought, maybe this is something I need to know about with this liver thing. They met. They had a coffee after, and the rest was history. They got married a year later. That's kind of the most far out one I've ever heard.
That's a fantastic story.
It's a good one. But you have to get out there and you have to put yourself out. And you're right. It does take some effort. And we're anxious. A lot of people in the States are anxious. The landscape of the world is in turmoil. We the climate situation and all the weather weirding and all those things going on. Then we had, surprise, we had a pandemic. And guess what? We're not bears. We're not made to hibernate and not eat for 9 months or whatever. We're social creatures. And it had a terrible effect on us. And and worldwide, a terrible effect. That's not natural living. Children couldn't go to school and socialize. People were working at home and not socializing, learning work skills, learning from others on the job, really seeing their team members and working with them, et cetera, et cetera. It stopped our progress. It stopped a whole developmental stage, in my estimation.
Oh, I fully agree with you.
Yes, some people are still grappling with it. We assume that people then in rural areas, that we assume everybody has a computer and has access to Wi-Fi, but they don't.
No.
They don't. That's naive to think that. That would be nice, but they don't. They had to grapple with things in an entirely different manner.
What do you do when you don't work?
Well, I read. I read 3 or 4 books a week. I love to read. I like to watch movies and go to the theater. I love to be with friends. have dinner with them and find out what they're doing and all that kind of thing. Socialize.
Yeah. Because you're always giving. How do you rejuvenate from such heavy work? And teaching is not easy either.
No, it isn't. Well, I approach on two parallel paths. One is the outside of the body, so to speak, the physical and the medical, if you will. Are you sleeping well? Are you eating well? This is for any person, but particularly for grievers. Are you going for your checkups? All of these kind of checking on the outside. Are you exercising? That type of thing. And then along with that, the second parallel path is the healing of the inside, the wound of losing somebody or losing a job or losing the chance to socialize, whatever it is that affects our souls, our center, our core, whatever we call that. So working with those two things, that's how I work. That's how I approach.
A lot of wisdom. Thank you so much, Diana. It's always nice to talk to you and learn from you.
Thank you. I enjoyed speaking with you.
What a lovely conversation. And this brought back memories when I went to college as an adult to Marymount, Manhattan. Many great memories. Take it from the Ironwoman. We have episodes every Monday. Check them out. There's people from around the world in different languages. And also make sure to get the book, Take It from the Ironwoman, Global Business Coaching with Sports Parallels. Thank you for your support. Write a review, like us on your preferred podcast platform. Thank you very much and bye-bye.